Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today we are going to be talking about a very inspirational subject. People who could use a little more humor and happiness at their work and in their lives. You ever see teams or companies whose spirit and energy needs a boost? Well, that's what our guest is here to talk to us about today. We have Cline. She is a certified speaking professional. She is the Southern, Sassy, and Savvy Harley riding humorist, passionately showing people, teams, and companies how to experience more of both humor and happiness. Her keynotes, workshops, internet podcasts turned co-authored #1 best-selling book, and one-woman show are all tools that help guide the way to those outcomes. She is the president of the Center for Laughing and Learning, where ROI Meets LOL. June shares her research and expertise using the power of laughter to boost company morale, engagement, and the bottom line. The return on investment of laughing out loud with colleagues, clients, and those for whom they care is measurable in retention, loyalty, and trust. Welcome to the show, June. Hello, June, are you there?
I am. Hi, Neil.
Okay, great. Well, let's get right into it. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and the business that you're in. It's a little bit different, so let's start there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was born a poor black child. I'd love stealing that line from Steve Martin, actually. But yeah, I think it is a unique approach. I have always been one of those that could find a quip, a quote, or something funny around most things, and particularly growing up in my family life. And I found that when I got into corporate, I could really be recognized and are known, and it's what I call the 3 R's. I learned that I could earn recognition, respect, and reward from making other people laugh out loud. And so it took not too long for me to figure out that there was an ROI, a return on investment, of having others laugh out loud. And I built a business around that.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about the actual business. What do you do? You said in your introduction there, I said you work with teams and companies. Tell me what you do when you go into a company and what you offer them.
Okay, well, I consider myself, and this has taken years, you understand, to get the branding and to figure out what it is I really do. And I have 3 C's now. If it doesn't fall in these 3 categories, I ain't doing it, which is corporate, comedy, and coaching. So in corporate world, I'm typically working with executives and or their upper management team to either help them funny up their presentation skills with a speech, and or their teams need to lighten up or understand how their style, their comedic styles affect other team members. And so I go in and do my program, which is the ROI of LOL, 5-step process to get people to understand how their humor is affecting others. And then the comedy, you want to?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. What are 2 or 3 problems that business might have when it comes to just connecting with each other?
Well, humor is a huge make or break, charm or harm, hurt or help kind of thing that's not really understood to the extent that it should be and can be. I've been in corporate for many, many years prior to starting my own business about 25 years ago. And, you know, I could hear and see what people were doing by having what I call pointed out humor. And 2 things, their humor's pointed out, and there's not enough, as Stephen R. Covey said, enough deposits in the emotional bank account. Mm-hmm. And when those 2 things happen, then you've got people who are being injured or harmed with someone's humor being pointed out and not understanding how or why they hurt someone because they don't have enough emotional bank account with the people. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yes, certainly. So
Okay.
what is your ability then? You go in there and you talk to them, you share, or you give an understanding of each side. Tell me a little bit of what that process looks like.
I do. I created out of desperation. Isn't that where we most create? When the mother of necessity, as we say. I had given 4 different speeches in 1 week, 4 different states, 4 different speeches, and they were all received differently. Though the content was the same, the reactions from the people from the audiences were different. So I went in and started analyzing why one was awesome, off the chart fun, another one was good and fun, but another one was, ooh, who are these people and why didn't that work? And then the third one was, I don't ever want to do that again. I'm sorry, the fourth. And so I started looking at them and I came up with 4 quadrants of comedic styles, which are crazy, caring, cerebral, and caustic. And in looking at that style, I was able, one group, and I don't know if I should say this or not, it was a union group that was forced to be there and told you will be, in this meeting. So most everybody didn't want to. And it was just a very caustic environment. And for me to understand that there is a particular style and a style of corporation and company, then how does that translate to their product and or their service and or their customers? And I go in now and help customers understand what their culture, their comedic culture is for their company, and if it's hurting or helping their bottom line.
Definitely. I mean, there's a big problem in companies that they just don't communicate well with each other, and
that's it.
Not everything is around humor, but just the communication in general seems to be a big problem. So what stage does a company have to get to before they're calling June Cline to come in and talk to their people?
Well, hopefully not desperate. They bring me in for several reasons. Sometimes they just want a fun meeting or a kickstart to their training or their conference to have an upbeat, but also with content. They want it to be fun and funny and them leave knowing more than they did. So they would bring me in for that. Sometimes, it's pretty, there's trouble. They really are in the communication throes of trying to figure it out. And I've had boards bring me in to help them look at their comedic styles, and they go with a big aha. I divide them in groups, and then they have these exercises to do around their comedic style. And there's this major aha around how they are personally looking and using humor. And oftentimes it's very caustic in corporate.
Right. So you go in and you give them a few things to do, but what misconceptions do they have before you get there? What do they think that you do? And do they think, well, this isn't going to work?
I have had some of that. I've had some people that really didn't understand, or they misconstrued it as fluff or a light topic. And I always find that really interesting, because the bottom line is it's communication skills. And if you're having difficulty with communicating, then there's nothing light or fluffy or not appropriate about it as far as understanding and learning more how to communicate. So that's one of the challenges that I have. And then the other thing is people just not knowing and not understanding that there is some real ROI issues around the way they are, their company and or their people or their team are using humor. Okay,
so let's take it back a little bit. June, talk to me. You said it took years for you to get to this point and to realize that this was your passion and this is where you wanted to be in this happiness world. How did you get started in this? Talk to me about the process or the journey up to this point.
Oh my gosh. Well, I stumbled into understanding that this was, number one, there was a problem. And number two, I felt that I had skills to fix it about 25 years ago when I was in student financial aid. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't care if anybody in the hearing us has ever had to fill out one of those back then. My gosh, it was like a 15-page booklet. And so there's nothing funny about humor in financial aid, but I found student bloopers that were hysterical. And at the time, there was a massive upheaval going on in student loans because the government had come in and they were going to be doing direct lending, and as opposed to it a loan coming from the regular institutions, banking industry. So this split, it divided the people that had been working in financial aid forever, 100 years, whatever it was, wasn't quite that old. But they were making choices and decisions that people were very unhappy. It was causing a divide in the industry. And I decided somebody needed to lighten it up. So I volunteered to give a speech in front of 300 of my closest peers and colleagues at a state meeting where I had started collecting these goofy student bloopers, things they put on their application. And they were funny. They were hysterical.
I'm sure.
Like, for instance, under sex on the application, they would give us more information than we wanted. And they would say yes, no, sometimes, twice, once in Madisonville, again in Valdosta. And literally, that is the question that I started a file that day called, I called them idiot moments. And I started putting all these bloopers from the actual forms. And I used those and then did a presentation around it. And next thing I knew, I was being asked to go from state to state to state. And I was a rock star in student financial aid around humor in student financial aid because nobody had ever thought to do that before.
So I'm sure all those IMOs, as you call them,
yes,
got tremendous reception. And I guess this business just kind of grew generically from there.
Oh my gosh, it really did. And that's where what I'm saying now, the ROI of LOL, that's my tagline, because as I looked back at the timeline of my life, I could see that I really, in places that I was promoted or had another opportunity or spun off into something else, it was all based around my strategic ability to make someone laugh. And I realized that I had honed a particular style and a way to do it. And that's now in my coaching. That's what I help other people do. It's like, okay, what's your style? We went through those 4 styles. And is it charming or harming the industry that you're in? And what IMOs, what idiot moments do you have personally that will set you apart when you tell that story and people begin to identify you as someone that is approachable?
So tell me a little bit more about the whole branding of who you are now. You say it's been many years in the making, but what have you done on your journey to get to where you are now, where you're speaking all over the country?
Well, a couple of things. As speakers, we constantly have to reinvent ourselves, and we have to stay relevant and current with what's going on. And it's never ending, really. But about 3 years ago, I really heard myself say, I can make pre through post menopausal women lose fluids. And that's the truth. When my audience was mainly female, and whether it was nursing or teachers or business women or whomever, I can make them lose fluids from laughter because of the the idiot moments that I've been through, that so many other, it's got to be universal. So the more common denominator, the more people relate. And that then, when I really looked at that about 3 years ago, I went, why don't I invite that group to come see me do basically just my IMOs, the idiot moments, for myself and others at a show, a one-woman show. So I started creating an audience where they come to me, and then I deliver the funny, and that set me apart and made me even more unique.
Definitely, and I've seen you in action, and you are incredibly funny with your personal stories that I really love. Now, you also started a podcast where you speak and invite people on. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that was a brainchild of a friend of mine who has been in radio for about 35 years. I don't know if she'd want me to say that, but Sandy Weaver is an amazing woman, and quite frankly, I was her coach. She came to me to funny up her speech and what she was doing, and as we like to say, somewhere in there we became friends. And one day we were leaving each other, and I said, so where are you off to this afternoon? And she said, oh, I've got to go put some music in the can. She worked for a particular radio personality to do his programming. And I said, I always forget that you do that. I always wanted to be on the radio because I knew I had the face for radio. Well, she laughed and she said, you do not have the face for radio. And she called me the next day and said, how serious are you about being on the radio? And I, sassily said, well, how serious do I need to be? And she wanted to do a podcast, but she didn't want to do it alone. So we met the next week and we brainstormed, what could we possibly do? Well, happiness came up because the world has just kind of gone nuts and crazy. And we thought if we could bring just a little bit more happiness to the planet by telling stories and interviewing people around their happiness recipe, that we could maybe make the world just a little lighter. So we've done over 200, we've had over 100 interviews, and it's 2.5 years that we were doing this podcast. We've suspended the actual podcast this moment because, as you know, we created a book that went to #1, and
right.
That then drew the attention of a company that you'll all soon be hearing and know about, and the name of that company is Elevacity, and they wanted their whole thing is around elevating health, wealth, and happiness. Well, ding, 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 when happiness word showed up, and we were introduced to the creator, and he knew the podcast that we had and the book. He wanted us to have to do exclusively some things with them. And so, gosh, that podcast that morphed into a book that morphed into what will be, we have a couple of TV online programs, a TV with this company now, and all that's rolling out, and it's very exciting.
Yes, I know, and I've seen you out and about. You're flying off to Dallas for different things with Elevacity. So tell me. I know there was supposed to be cruises involved in this as well. Is that still on the table?
It's supposed to be what?
A cruise?
Oh, absolutely. They're called vacationers. And this is so cool because I wanted to do this with another company, 7 or 8 years ago, because I really wanted to combine the vacation with seminars, and especially around what I was doing, which was humor and fun. And I just couldn't get that whole thing together. And then flash forward, it's that whole thing about timing and destiny and fate. And this company, Elevacity, will be having specifically vacationers where we go to mega star resorts and half a day or some of the day is filled with coaching and our teaching and our training around health, wealth, and happiness. And then we'll go play together. So it's a perfect combination.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It's going to be.
So tell me a little bit more about the whole happiness industry. There's a whole industry. Has it just kind of exploded in the last couple of years? How did the whole happiness industry really come about?
Oh, I think that's a great question. And I think the pursuit of happiness, I mean, that's in the Constitution. So how far do you want to go back? You know? I think that's something that we all want and are strive for. What Sandy and I found out with our podcast and also with when we were at conventions and we would do booth duty, we would invite people to come over and write on a little Post-it note, excuse me, what three things made them happy. And, we were blown away by the number of people that said, I don't know, or I hadn't thought about that, or I don't know what makes me happy. And it was like, really? So in our workshops and what we do together and then as individuals, Sandy and I, we really try to get people to hone in on what is that thing that makes them happy. And as far as looking at the pursuit of it, I think the last several years, there has been so much research. And Dr. Seligman is a noted psychologist that helped to turn this around. He created the term or the word positive psychology because he had spent, and I may be totally paraphrasing this not correctly, but what I remember from my research on him is he was tired of working with the negative around mental health. And he thought, what if we went in the positive way and started looking at that? So he started that trend and our movement, and a bunch of people jumped on. And one of the things that's really cool is Sean Aker, who is from Harvard and spent many years researching happiness all over the world. He's a part of Elevosity. He's one of the core curriculum that we have that people can actually go there and get a 21-day experience for free of what happiness is, what that looks like for them. And so it's very hot right now. It is a hot topic because the world has gone crazy and people want to lighten up.
Yes, they certainly do. So what do you say the core problem is then in a business that has asked you to come and speak to them?
Well, again, communication, stress, fun, lack thereof. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on team building. The companies are always, I don't think the core of that ever changes of what really they're dealing with. Now, how they deal with it can change. And we're seeing that the carrot stick method has really, it's not working anymore. And especially the millennials and different people are coming up that are growing up differently. They don't want cubicle nation, and they don't want to be told where to be at a specific time. And so there is some freedom and are some different approaches that traditional businesses are having to take and having to look at keeping their people happy. It's more important now for them. And that I believe in the past, they haven't cared whether their people were happy or not.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the millennials coming up are more into the collaboration and being able to work together with people. So it makes sense that they have to understand them a little bit more and deal with different types of humor so that they can get along and make things work. Mm-hmm.
And different types of happiness, what makes you happy. For me, and this is to the degree that we, Sandy and I, when we do our workshops, we really go deep. The first blush of what makes you happy, people say family, God, work, my friends, it's that sort of thing. And it's a very broad category. Well, in our workshops, we take them deeper, and we want to know what the emotional meaning is to those words. And I can give mine as an example, because when I looked at my words that meant what was important to me, that made me happy, it was freedom, excitement, and adventure. And when you look at freedom, excitement, and adventure, that's my three. But what are your three? And we give people a list, and there's a ton of words that people can use, but it makes them go deeper. And for me, and I ride a Harley. I mean, hello, I've wanted to my whole life, and it wasn't until I understood those words, excuse me, that I got and understood that is the ultimate for me, is to be writing. And it's a spiritual moment. It's a huge thing. I mean, I'm out there, and I'm excited, and I'm free, and and now I understand with my jobs, I need that same freedom, excitement, and adventure. So when I was in Cubicle Nation, growing up in my formative years and working, I hated it. I was typing, I was an administrative assistant, I was doing all those things. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but for me, with freedom, excitement, and adventure, once I became a marketing rep for a major bank, I was going in and out of different states and meetings, and never knew exactly what was going to be happening. And finally, I could understand why those things made me happy and those other things did not make me happy. Does that make sense?
Yes, certainly. There's a lot of unhappy people at work, and I imagine that is a major problem. People say that if you work on your passion, then it's no longer work. And if you're really passionate about something, that the money will follow. And that's, it sounds like what you've done with your happiness. You figured out what makes you happy, and you've made a business out of it. Well, it was perfect. I started out with humor, but that made me happy. And then when Sandy and I came in with the podcast, then we were certainly doing research and getting to understand how other people, what their happiness was. And then that led to a company that is now totally focused on the health, wealth, and happiness of others. So it's been a beautiful morphing or graduation to this is my business. This is what I do. It's all about joy. I just was on another interview earlier, and the woman that was interviewing me, she has amazing business, and she said in French, and I don't even know what the word is, but she said, "You exude joy." And that made me feel so good, because that's what I want to do for people, teams, companies, others. Well, it's certainly a work that is making a difference, and lightening the mood in the workplace and getting people to get on better so that they're more productive. You're certainly making a difference in the world, June Cline. Oh, sounds awesome. So thank you for that. Yeah, no problem. If people are interested in hearing more about you or having you come in to talk, what's the best way for them to get into contact with you? My website is June Cline. That's Cline with a C, C-L-I-N-E, June like the month, JuneCline.com. Excellent. And go ahead. Well, I can give the Elevacity website, JuneCline.elevacity.com, if they want to go check that out. That's ELEVACITY, like elevate, but with velocity, so elevacity.com. Well, and if anybody's going to be in Phoenix coming up in July, if they get to hear this before then, I'm doing my one-woman show in Phoenix on the 22nd, and they can get information at JuneCline.com there as well. Awesome, June. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today and being on the show, and we appreciate the work that you're doing for all these people to bring a little bit more happiness to the world. Thank you, Neil. Thanks for thinking of me. Well, thanks very much for being on the show. And to our listeners, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.